Welcome to my critical evaluation and reflection video on assessment design. Part 1. I designed an online assessment task for first-year university students who are studying social media marketing, which is a 10-week online unit. The assessment is called Social Media Branding and Analysis, and it's broken into different parts to create a formative assessment. The assessment task is authentic, as students are to imagine they work in a digital marketing agency, and it stimulates the work they would complete in the real world as a social media professional. The first task they are to complete is to choose a brand and ascertain which two mainstream social media platforms would best serve their brand, and then design 2 social media adverts and post them on the platforms. After completing this task, they are to screenshot and post the adverts with an analysis on the group discussion board. They are allocated into groups of 4 and will receive peer feedback on their social media adverts. The second task they will complete is a self-reflection. This journal entry will also include a screenshot of their advertisements to receive formative feedback from their teacher. The final part of the assessment is where they take everything they have learnt from the peer feedback, self-reflection and teacher feedback to redesign their social media adverts and to create a video showcasing their advertisements in a pitch to the social media agency and explain how they critically use 2 mainstream social media platforms, the positives and negatives of each platform, and which worked best for their brand. In my assessment design, I found the feedback given on my activity from peers and my teacher to be very helpful in improving it. In my original assessment design plan, the students wrote a summary. A peer suggested that I could include different skills for the student, so I have now included video into the design. My teacher suggested that my original assessment design was too simple for first-year university students. Initially, the assessment was to create 1 social media post. So I have made this assessment more in-depth by changing this to 2 matching social media advertisements, and the student also must give a critical analysis of the 2 mainstream social media platforms that they use for the ads. The original design had students finishing with a self-reflection after receiving peer feedback. In week 4, I learned it's important to get teacher feedback and to have the chance to act on the feedback and redo their submission. So I added these elements to my design. Another point from my teacher was to make sure the task met Learning Objective 4. In the first design, I didn't have anything really critical about using social media platforms, as they were making 1 post to a platform. I updated this to meet the learning objective, so that students have to critically use 2 different mainstream social media platforms by analysing the positives and negatives of each platform and which worked best for their brand and why. Part 2. I designed the assessment to directly align with the 2 learning outcomes for social media management. These were number 4, critically use mainstream social media platforms. For this criteria, students are to critically analyse which 2 mainstream social media platforms would best serve their brand and target market and write an analysis of this. In the final part of their assessment, they are to discuss critically in their video the 2 platforms they used and the positives and negatives of each platform and which work best for their brand. For number 5, produce and disseminate high quality digital content for social media platforms. Students are required to design the graphics in Canva and write the copy for 2 matching high quality social media advertisements in accordance with the platforms they have chosen. For example, it might be a reel for Instagram and a post for Facebook, and post them on the social media platforms meeting this criteria. Decisions I made to make the assessment authentic online. According to Harrington et al., authentic assessment tasks simulate as closely as possible what is done by professionals. I designed my assessment in this way by students imagining they were working for a digital marketing agency and doing the work that is done by social media professionals, i.e. making decisions about relevant social media platforms and designing graphics and writing social media posts. The last part of the assessment, they also do a pitch via video about their brand to their digital marketing agency. Wiggins says that in order to provide authentic assessment in online courses, the course needs to offer the opportunity for students to be effective performers with acquired knowledge and to craft polished products. In my activity, the students have a few different chances to further craft the social media products they are creating by receiving peer review feedback, doing a self-reflection, and by undertaking a formative assessment and receiving feedback from their teacher. Finally, putting all that knowledge together as a more polished assessment and formative learning experience. Characteristics of rich assessment tasks developed by Clark include engaging the learner. This can be successfully undertaken by providing a measure of choice or openness for the learner. I have included this in the assessment design by providing the learner with 4 differing brands to choose from, so they can choose a brand that is more aligned with their personality or interests. This will also engage the learner in the assessment and give them more ownership of the task. Other elements of authentic learning, according to Harrington et al., include reflection, collaboration, and feedback. These will all be discussed in the following topics. Now I will discuss how the assessment tasks develop students' ability to think critically and self-reflect. Bowd, Coe, and Walker define the process of reflection as consisting of 3 stages. 1. Return to the experience, recollecting the salient features of the experience, recounting them to others. 2. Attending to feelings, accommodating positive and negative feelings about the experience. 3. Re-evaluating the experience, associating new knowledge, integrating new knowledge into the learner's conceptual framework. Point 1 and 2 are included in my assessment design when the student is asked to submit a self-reflection on their design and also submit this as part of their formative task to their teacher. As part of this reflection, they are asked to write about what they learnt from the activity, their positive and negative feelings about the experience, and what they will change based on the group feedback. The third step is formed when the learner integrates this new knowledge into their final submission. By doing this, they have an organic opportunity for self-reflection and to think critically about their work and what improvements they wish to make. They are required to do this in their final video, where they have a chance to resubmit improved social media adverts and where they are asked to discuss what their positive and negatives are of the 2 social media platforms and which work best for their brand and why. Collins says that in order to facilitate reflection, the learning course needs to provide the opportunity for learners to compare themselves with other learners. Students in this assessment can do this within their groups when they have the opportunity to see the social media adverts of their peers that are posted in their group discussion boards. Collaboration. Harrington states that the opportunity for users to collaborate is an important design element, particularly for students who are learning online. I have included productive collaborating with others by grouping students into teams of 4. Students are then required to comment on each other's social media advertisements and give feedback. Students are required to take this feedback into account in their future design, so it is integral to the assessment design. It is also worth 10% to further encourage students to collaborate. Brown et al. States that collaboration can be encouraged through appropriate tasks and communication technology. For my assessment design, I have used an online discussion board and also provided a Teams channel for organic collaboration and social networking amongst learners. Based on the Queensland Curriculum and Assessment Authority website of how teachers can improve accessibility of assessment, I have ensured my assessment task design includes the following inclusivity and accessibility standards. I recommend the assessment task sheet is shared in week 1. Feedback from peers and teachers should be provided in a timely manner so students can apply it. In the design of my task sheet, I endeavoured to set it out so instructions are clear and concise through formatting. I used black and white with sans serif good size font, and I used a web content accessibility guidelines checker to check the colour accessibility. A PDF version will be available to read through a screen reader for those with vision impairment. Students receive feedback about the progress by receiving teacher feedback before their final submission. The learner outcomes are clear. and also noted them in brackets within the task instructions. I have used inclusive strategies to enable all students to excel in the assessment by communicating the assessment in both Zoom discussion and written form. Students with learning difficulties will have more time allocated to them to complete the assessment. Students have access to everything they need to complete the assessment in the online environment. They have social media platforms, design software, and everything within the LMS, and I always provide links to these resources. Graham et al. Has recommendations for designing accessible assessment. These include flexibility and diversity. I did this by providing a range of different assessment tasks within the activity, from creative design, writing, reflecting, giving feedback, and speaking. Visual accessibility. The layout of the task sheet helps students access the important elements of the task. Linguistic accessibility. The directions of the task sheet and language are clear. The academic will effectively communicate the task by sharing the task sheet with students in week 1. They will hold an online discussion and question and answer session, and also provide an assignment question and answer discussion board in the LMS. Feedback from my learners in this online environment will be given by voice recordings and comments to make the feedback more accessible to different learning styles. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed hearing about my assessment design.